Jacob's car. I don't know about this. You don't trust me now, Darren said. He held onto Jolie's hand as they walked down a path of thickets and brush. Darren was dressed as the classic Dracula, and Jolie was dressed as a punk rocker from the 80s. Jolie looked wide-eyed with her dark, misaligned eyeliner. It's scary out here in the dark. Darren smiled. Well, it is Halloween night, he sang out. Besides, I have my flashlight, and the moon is pretty full. The well-trodden dirt path and darkened trees began to diminish the width of the path as they walked. It's getting a little tight. Watch your step. Darren held a small flashlight in one hand and Jolie's hand in his other. The flashlight brightened the brush and branches in bright streaks and flashes. Are we almost there? Jolie asked. I think so, Darren said. Brad told me it was next to Eagle Point, to the left. Jolie looked up and saw the tip of Eagle Point through the trees while they were approaching the left side of the mountain. Okay, good, we're almost there, Jolie said as she watched her steps. They walked through the scraping tree branches and out into a clearing. Look, there it is. It's spooky. Jolie stared under the light of the moon. They gazed upon a set of train tracks that came out of the tunnel that was cut through Eagle Point Mountain. That's it, huh? Jolie said. Darren pulled a small Mickey bottle of whiskey from his pocket. We've got time for a drink here. He handed the bottle to Jolie. Whiskey? You like whiskey, Darren said. I know, but it's not exactly a Halloween drink. How about something with some spooky color like? Jolie took a swig and gulped it down. The burn of the alcohol tightened her vocal cords. You know, like green-colored vodka or something. What? Are you some kind of alcoholic? You know high schoolers aren't supposed to be alcoholics. Darren laughed and grabbed the whiskey and took a swig of his own. He grabbed his phone out of his pocket and looked at the time. We still have almost 10 minutes before midnight. Cool. Jolie felt warm from the whiskey as it tingled the skin on her neck and ears. She hugged Darren tightly. It was a long walk, but I'm glad we came out here. This is kind of fun under the moonlight. Well, if everything goes right, we'll be on the train for eternity, Darren said, making his best Dracula impression. Wouldn't that be nice? Give me another drink. Darren handed Jolie the small bottle of whiskey. Kim drank a sip and took a deep breath. It's almost gone, if you want some. Sure, give me the rest. Darren tilted the bottle back to the last drop, then threw the bottle toward the train tracks. The bottle hit the gravel first, then exploded to the iron rail, turning into glass dust. Wow, that really exploded, Kim said, giggling. I've never seen glass do that, Darren said. He was beginning to feel a little buzzed and stared a tad too long at the train track. Jolie grabbed Darren's arm. What time is it now? Let me see. Darren pulled out his phone. Oh shit, it's almost time. A couple of minutes. A faint rumble vibrated under their feet. It's coming. It's for real, Darren said. No way. Jolie jumped up and down. Come on, let's go. We have to stand on tracks. Wait a minute. I'm not doing that, Kim said. Why not? It's not really real. These tracks haven't been used since the 40s, Darren said. This is just a myth, come on. It's fun. It's Halloween. I don't know, Jolie said apprehensively. Come on, here, grab my hand. Jolie reached out and grabbed Darren's hand, and he walked her over to the tracks. Okay, Brad said. We have to face the tunnel and say the words, Soul Train, 3 times. Darren and Jolie faced the tunnel, and they immediately noticed the 2 strips of iron rail disappear into the darkness. Darren placed his left foot on the left rail, sticking his heel into the gravel. I can't feel the train. No way. You said it wasn't real, Jolie said. Check it out. Put your foot on the rail. Jolie stuck her foot on the right rail in a similar fashion to Darren's. I don't feel anything. Jolie concentrated. Wait, I think I do feel something. Darren and Jolie felt the vibration grow incrementally. It's really weird. What could be making the track do this? Jolie asked. Darren just nodded and turned his mouth down at the edges. I don't know, but we need to say the words. Keep hold of my hand. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Soul train, soul train, soul train. Instantly, a single locomotive head lamp bolstered out of the tunnel. The train rumbled and traveled quickly toward Jolie and Darren. They froze in fear as the train collided with their bodies. The train whistled down the old tracks and disappeared into the night. Darren's sneakers and Jolie's black slip-on tennis shoes laid empty by the rails. The afternoon sun shone through the windows of the cafeteria at Hope's End High School. The cafeteria was mostly empty, with the exception of a few students who didn't take lunch from home. Hope's End High had only a few hundred students, being a small town, so for Kim Langston, it was a place of solitude, a way to eat lunch in peace and catch up with her homework. She sat down at an empty table and took out a brown bag lunch from her backpack, in addition to a notebook and a pen. She liked to scribble out drawings while she ate her sandwich, and was in mid-process of drawing an owl holding a snake when Jacob Mansfield walked up and sat down. Hey there. Kim swallowed her current bite. Hey, she said. Jacob had been friends with Kim since they were toddlers. Their parents even had them take baths together as little kids, a memory that had long disappeared since they had 12 years or so to forget. Jacob really liked Kim, and she knew it, and didn't really reciprocate the feelings. She flirted with the idea of something more, and took for granted his good looks and the fact that all the girls at Hope's End High would die to go out with him, just like all the guys would die to out with Kim. But she was an impenetrable wall that only allowed a chosen few to walk through, and everyone knew it. Did you hear they found Darren and Jolie's shoes at the tracks next to Eagle Point? I didn't hear that. That's awful, Kim said as she browsed her paper bag for another snack. Apparently, Brad told them about the Halloween night legend. Not the Soul Train? Kim said. Of course. Jacob watched Kim open a bag of chips. I'll take one of those. He reached into the bag and pulled out a couple of chips and threw them into his mouth. I've got an idea, Jacob said with his mouth half full. Don't even think about it, Kim said. She pulled a Coke out her paper bag and popped the top. Why not? It could be fun, Jacob said as he encroached on Kim's personal space. It's Friday, and you know you'll have all your homework done by the time school ends. No way. Come on. Not happening, Kim said as she took a sip of her Coke. Okay, let's make a deal. You know that BB concert that's coming up? Yeah. You know how it's sold out? Jacob smiled. Yeah, keep talking. Kim sat up straight, now giving Jacob her full, undivided attention. Jacob pulled out 2 tickets from the front pocket of his pants and smiled wide. These will be yours, he sang. All right, I'll go with you, Kim said. To the concert, Jacob said loudly. His voice echoed through the cafeteria, and all the students turned their heads to check out the commotion. Nothing to see here, Jacob said. Sorry about that. Jacob waved his hands in surrender to the gawking eyes. I'll go with you to the tracks. The concert. I'll really have to think about that one, Kim snatched the tickets from Jacob's hand. So, tonight or Saturday night? Tonight, of course. Jacob slapped his hands together, satisfied that he got what he wanted. All right, come and pick me up around 10. Jacob grabbed Kim's half-empty bag of chips and started to walk away. Then he turned around. I'll be there. Kim looked at the clock. It was 9:50 p.m. Jacob would be pulling up to her house at any moment. She looked at herself in the mirror and straightened the collar of lightweight jacket. She saw the headlights of Jacob's car rolled across the wall of her bedroom. He's here, she thought. She grabbed a non-school backpack and walked out of her room, then out of the front door quietly. Her steps pattered the concrete sidewalk that split her front yard into 2 evenly squares of grass. Jacob opened the passenger side door from the driver's side, keeping his left hand locked to the steering wheel. Kim sat down inside and set her backpack on her lap. How's it going? Good. How are you? Kim replied. There was an awkward silence in the car that in all the years they had been friends had never happened before. Kim felt a little nervous, like she was embarking on some kind of new life-changing adventure. And in the dashboard light, Jacob looked different, older, maybe even more attractive. Kim felt strange and quickly wanted it to end. So, do you know where we're going? Kim said. Yeah, I tried to find Brad and ask him again, but he went missing from school. Nobody knows where he went. His parents were in the office talking to the principal. There was even a couple of cops too. Maybe they think he had something to do with Darren and Jolie. Brad never struck me as a teenage killer type. Yeah, that's true. Kim laughed. They found no bodies, so unless you're in California, no body, no jail. That's not how it works, Jacob said as he pressed his car into gear. I've watched a lot of true crime shows, so I know about things like this. The cops found their shoes at the place Brad told them to go, Jacob said. He kept his eyes on the road and his hands at 2 and 10. Maybe Brad's a killer. Jacob glanced over at Kim. Anyway, I'm surprised your parents let you out this late. They went to a casting call party for the theater and got wasted. And when they got home, they just went to their room and passed out. No way. It's the theater life, Kim said. They just finished production on the Werewolves of the Blood. Jacob shook his head. Sounds cool. It's a 3-hour play, Kim said. It sounds exhausting to me. Still cool, you know. My mom's job is so boring, it's not even worth asking about it, Jacob said. You mean doing taxes isn't fun? Kim said, smiling. That's why I'm going to be a famous rock star, living life on the road. Jacob held his hand up in the rock star devil horns. Well, nothing lasts forever, Kim said. What doesn't last forever? Jacob asked, as a car passed them on the 2-lane road. The headlight beams tracked across Jacob's eyes as he looked forward, keeping his eyes on he road. Anything. Happiness, contentment, everything is constantly changing into something it didn't start out as. Example, please. Kim shrugged her shoulders. Okay. She paused and thought. Like when we were small, we'd play outside, laugh, worry-free. Our parents would watch us and laugh too. It seemed like they were happy. And if we played by the rules, when we got older, we could be happy too. But the rules have changed, and I just don't see anyone happy anymore. Wow, that's depressing. Are you going through some kind of phase I don't know about? Jacob poked Kim lightly on her side. No, Kim laughed. Maybe? Usually you're funny and sarcastic, Jacob said, still prodding. Maybe it's just we're graduating soon, and the world out there seems pointless. I don't think that at all, Jacob said. Imagine, if you will, A handsome young guy named Jacob gets together with a girl named... Kim's phone rang loudly, and she pulled it out of her pocket. It's my mom. Hey, Mom. I was going to say Kim, Jacob said under his breath. I blew my chance again, he thought. Jacob listened to the one-sided conversation. Yeah, Mom, I know. I'm sorry. Next time I'll wake you up. Kim looked over at Jacob and stuck her tongue out, making light of her conversation with her mom. Okay, Mom. I'll be home after midnight. Jacob's taking me to Eagle Point. Yeah, I'll let you know when I get home. I love you too. Your mom and dad have always been cool. I know, Kim said, looking out of the window into the darkness of the night. She smiled brightly as her face reflected on the window. She turned to look at Jacob. Sorry for the downer. Jacob looked back. Don't worry about it. That's what I'm here for, to cheer you up. There's the sign. Jacob turned his car down Sutter's Road. Hey, we could get on the Soul Train? Wouldn't that be fun? Kim replied. The road ended at a tree line, and it was lit up by the moon. Jacob parked his car parallel to the edge of the trees, and Eagle Point was straight ahead, looking out of the passenger's side window. Jacob reached over into the back and pulled out his own backpack. Looks spooky, Kim said as she looked at the gleaming mountain. Kind of does. That's why I brought these flashlights, he said with a smile. He handed one to Kim, and she immediately turned it on, checking its brightness. All right, let's go. Jacob opened his door and stepped out. Kim followed. Now what? Jacob looked around. Oh, there it is. Jacob walked over to sign that was being covered by a thrush of branches. He pulled the branches back, revealing an arrow that pointed to a path. The sign said Eagle Point Tunnel. We're going that way. Jacob pointed to a dirt path that was etched into the ground foliage. A light then, let's go. Kim was unamused as she turned on her flashlight. After a few minutes, they emerged into the open clearing. There in the moonlight were the train tracks leading out from the Eagle Point Tunnel. I get a weird feeling here, Kim said. The air feels thick. It's kind of hard to breathe. It must be the trees or something. Come on, let's stand on the tracks. Jacob and Kim walked over to the tracks. When they reached the gravel line, their steps crunched on the peat as they walked. What time is it? Jacob asked. Kim pulled out her phone and looked at it, noticing she had no bars on the signal. It's 11:58. We just made it, huh? Kim put her phone back in her pocket. We sure did. You put your foot on that track, and I'll put my foot on this one, Jacob directed. What for? To summon the Soul Train, of course. Kim smiled. So we're really going to do this? Of course. We are. Jacob turned Kim's body to face the tunnel. You know what to do. I kind of feel stupid, Kim said. What? It's just you and me getting on the Soul Train, Jacob egged on. Kim put her hair behind her ears with a slide of her fingertips. Okay, you dork. Let's do it. Okay together, Jacob said. Soul Train, Soul Train, Soul Train, they said. The tracks began to vibrate. Do you feel that? Kim said. I do. The tracks rumbled loudly as the train's headlamp darted toward them. The light shone brightly on their terrified faces as the train ran into them. Their shoes laid discreetly next to the tracks in the quietude of night. Kim felt the vibration of the train car as she opened her eyes. Through the mid-sized windows, she could see the streaking of the outside world. The car was brightly lit with a yellow hue of light. The seats were red velvet, and a table was shared between each pair. She stood up and felt the smooth flooring under feet, which still had socks over them. Where are my shoes? she thought. The car slightly jerked side to side as the automatic door opened at the far end. A black man dressed immaculately in a red suit walked into the train car. His suit was slightly lighter than the velvet seats, and the lapels on his jacket and trim were woven of gold. He smiled brilliantly at Kim. "Welcome." "Where am I?" Kim said. The man's smile didn't leave as he spoke. "My name is Ralston." Ralston pointed to his name badge medallion on his bust. "You, my dear, are on the Soul Train." "What?" Kim ran away from Ralston and collided with the door on the other side of the car. The latch didn't move, and the door did not open. "Why are you running?" Ralston asked. "I want to go home." "My dear." Ralston walked toward Kim slowly and with an unwavering stare. "You can't go home." "Why not?" "You called to be a passenger, and we came, didn't we?" Ralston said. "I didn't know it was real." Kim suddenly realized Jacob was missing. "Where's Jacob?" "Jacob?" Ralston grabbed his chin. "Oh yeah, he's in the next car over." "Move out of the way. I'm going to get him." Ralston didn't move. "You can't see him now," he said. "Why not? Move," Kim demanded. "Because he has to provide his own ticket. You can't ride the Soul Train for free. That wouldn't be economical or in the best interests of the railroad company now, would it?" "What ticket? We're just a couple of kids." "Kids, you say? You're kids, all right, but you still have to provide a ticket to ride." "I don't have a ticket," Kim said. "Sure you do. You just have to find where you left it and present it to me." "I want off. I want to go home." Ralston walked to the door that he walked in from and opened it. "Show me the ticket." Ralston smiled and left the car. A wild tuft of wind blew into the car, and the crushing of the train wheels dampened as the door shut closed. Kim was stunned and peered at the door. She ran toward it and tried to open it, but it didn't open. She turned around, leaned on the door with her back, and slid downward into a seating position. She began to cry into her hands. After a few moments of sobbing, she looked up and saw a leather bag on one of the tables. Where did that come from? She stood up and meandered toward it. She braced her feet as she walked, feeling the car shake on the tracks. The bag was medium-sized and had a clasp on the front flap that kept it closed. She opened the bag, and it was impossible to see in the darkness of its tiny void. She reached in, knowing something had to be nestled in the shadows of the distressed leather. She pulled out an old handheld tape recorder, and after a short examination, she placed it on the table next to the bag. She reached in again and pulled out a 5x7 photo of a wedding picture. The faces of the bride and groom were fuzzy, as the scene showed them on a beach somewhere, getting married at sunset. She sat the photo down and reached into the bag and peculiarly took out the obituary section of a newspaper. She sat it down without giving it much thought. She reached into the bag once more, and it was empty. "What do I do with this stuff?" Kim said. She looked out of the window at the passing scenery and was aghast at what she saw. "Am I in hell?" she whispered. She saw darkened hills of charred countryside among fiery streams of molten orange. She could suddenly smell the burnt ember of ash and smoke fill the car. The hills and mountain ranges rolled by like dark silhouettes going up and down. The sky frightened her most of all, as lightning struck the horizon like electric branches, lighting up the burnt, desolate landscape. And amongst the billowing clouds were flying creatures diving and darting aimlessly, with translucent wings thin as silk. I am in hell." She turned away from the window. Inside didn't seem so bad compared to the outside. She looked down at the artifacts lined up on the table next to the bag. The hum of the train was soothing as she looked down at the table. The smell of burnt ash began to dissipate and was almost immediately being replaced with the smell of lilac and jasmine. The world outside the train, in turn, was lightening up like the beginning of a new spring morning. The lilac and jasmine conjured up memories of being a child, as did the sunny, bright light of the outside world. Kim reached for the tape recorder and pressed play. The static of the zinc ribbon started off with pops and crackles. Then a familiar voice spoke. It was her mom. "So my sweet little baby, you're 2 years old today, and I wanted you to know how much I love you." Kim's mom sounded so young and vibrant. "I just started my voice diary today. It's the new thing to do now. So, when you get older, you can hear my voice and from my own words, how much you mean to me when you get old enough to talk." Kim heard herself as a baby giggle like a baby infant. "That's right," Kim's mom sang out. "When you can talk, you'll help me out and add your own smart little words. Deal?" Kim's eyes welled up with tears. She had completely forgotten she was on the train. It wasn't until she wiped the tears from her eyes that the reality set in. "Bye-bye for now, sweetie. I love you forever, my little precious miracle." The tape stopped. What is this horrible place? Kim suddenly missed her mom badly and wished she never went out to Eagle Point. Her heart ached for the familiarity of home. She sat the tape recorder down on the table. Now what? She thought. The photo called out to her, and she picked it up. This time, upon peering at the figures in the photo, she saw herself as the bride and Jacob as the groom. What? This can't be? Look how old I am. Kim looked to be about 27 years old, or so give or take a couple of years, and Jacob was very aged with his half-grown beard and crow's feet that crinkled at his eyes. I don't even like beards, Kim muttered. Is this my future? Kim analyzed the photo and saw a little red devil running around in the still of the image. He was laughing and pouring fuel from a gas can around Kim and Jacob. He looked at Kim from the photo and put his index finger to his mouth. Shh, he said. He lit a match, and Kim watched as the red devil laughed. Kim and Jacob burned out of the photo to cinder. The two-dimensional flames singed her finger, and she dropped the photo. Oh, she directly put her finger to her mouth. What was that? That, my dear, was a taste of the unknown. Ralston, Kim said. Ralston was sitting in a booth across the aisle from Kim. Why? What is all this for? Kim asked. Ralston smiled. As the conductor, one would think that I would know such a fact, but the fact is, the answer lies within yourself. I'm dreaming this isn't real. Kim stood up. I'm here to collect your ticket for the ride. Did you find it? No, I haven't. Just this bag with this junk in it, Kim said. I need your ticket, or I'll have to let you off. Out there? Yes, out there. Ralston's smile was charming. It didn't matter what he said, it just came out sounding nice and amicable. What is out there anyway? Kim asked. More of the unknown. Fear, failure, accomplishment, love, hate, death. Ralston thought for a moment, and his eyes twinkled. It could be anything in any form. That's what the unknown is. Well, I don't want to go out there. I just want to go home, please, she pleaded. I'm sorry, but I need your ticket. I never got a ticket. I was standing on the tracks. Ralston interrupted. When you called for the train, it came. The newspaper fell to the floor. Kim picked it up almost immediately. What about this? Kim looked over to the table across the aisle, and Ralston had vanished. A headline on the front bottom of the obituary page caught her eye. It was her name spelled out in bold letters. Kim Langston died yesterday morning of... The sentence ended, so Kim turned the page. Loneliness. She continued to read quietly to herself. Kim Langston never understood the value of life, and therefore never understood its meaning. She sheltered her body and sheltered her mind, and therefore never experienced pain or adversity, nor pleasure or love. She lived well into her years, safeguarding her soul, leaving this world without experiences, looking at the world through the pane glass window of fear, until loneliness answered her call through the laughter of regret. The obituary ended, and Kim scanned over a few other names without really giving them much thought. I'm still a kid, she said. I don't want to end up like that. That's horrible. I need to find that ticket and get out of here. Kim started checking all the seats and under the tables, leaving no stone unturned. She didn't see a ticket anywhere. She gathered her thoughts and started over from the back of the car and went all the way around, checking every square inch. No ticket. Jacob! Kim ran to the door and tried to peer through the small window. She thought she recognized a blurry silhouette of Jacob's head. His hair was medium length and ashy brown. Jacob! She shouted as she pounded on the train car door. The blurry image disappeared. How do I get out of here? Kim said, tearful. The hum of the steel wheels rolling over the iron tracks snarled through the atmosphere of the car. The ever so calculated sway of the car on the tracks felt like the mother's love for her baby. Kim took a deep breath. I'm never getting out of here, she whispered. The lights flickered and Ralston appeared back at the table he had sat at earlier. He stared intently at Kim, as if he was examining her exterior emotions. This time, he did not seem friendly or cordial. Instead, his presence felt serious and empty. Do you know what the ultimate love is? Ralston asked. No, Kim said. Ralston's demeanor changed, and he looked at Kim lovingly. It's to sacrifice the most precious thing a person has for someone else. Ralston smiled. Their life. But Ralston, I don't want to die. I'm too young, Kim said. The example of the perfect sacrifice is from above. Ralston pointed up with his index finger. Best we can do is try to follow his example. The sound of keys jingling resounded from behind Kim. She turned around to look. There was a familiar set of keys sitting on a different table, all by themselves. Hey, I know those keys. Kim darted toward the keys and picked them up. These are Jacob's car keys. What are they? Kim turned around to see Ralston standing and waiting without word. These are Jacob's keys, Kim said, holding them up as she walked toward Ralston. They are, in fact, Jacob's keys, he said. Why are they here? He wanted to make sure you got home, Ralston replied. He learned from the example. Ralston pointed upward with his finger once more. What it is to give freely. I don't want them, Kim said. She handed Ralston the keys. I want to see Jacob. Now. Ralston looked down at the keys that were nestled on the palm of his hand, rearing halfway on his fingers. Hold on, it's going to get bumpy, he said. The train jerked side to side sharply. What's happening? Kim asked. The train is going through the tunnel, Ralston said. No one can see in the tunnel. Why? Kim asked. The train car jerked again. Because the tunnel is like the future that you cannot see. You can only take with you what time has made. You have presented your ticket, and your ticket is valid. Thank you for riding the Soul Train. The train entered the tunnel at an unknown speed. I want Jacob to have... Kim suddenly found herself standing at the tracks just outside of the tunnel at Eagles Point. She felt gravel poking under her feet through her socks. She looked around frantically in the light of a late afternoon sun. She looked down and saw her shoes. She slipped her shoes on as fast as she could. She felt something in her back pocket. She reached back and pulled out Jacob's car keys. She started to cry. What is happening to me? She stumbled across the gravel to the narrow dirt path that led to Jacob's car, and with tearful eyes, she ran down the path and didn't look back. The drive home was a blur in her mind. It was as if she was asleep at the wheel. The dark night had taken its place in the sky as Kim parked Jacob's car in front of her house. She turned the car off, and everything was silent as she sat in the driver's seat. She looked over to the exterior facade of her house and wished that the events that had happened on the train never occurred. She suddenly came to a realization that nothing had really happened at all. Nothing really happened to me. I'm not hurt, Kim said, breaking the silence of the car's interior. Kim left the keys in the ignition and stepped out of the car and walked to the front door. She opened it slowly and walked in. The familiar smell of her mother's candles and flowers that she frequently bought filled Kim's heart with love and appreciation. Kim remembered recently that she had excoriated her mother for wasting money on candles and flowers, and how she told her that only old people bought those type of useless things. I was wrong about that, Kim thought. Why did I treat her that way? She peered into the kitchen from the living room and saw the microwave time display blinking blue, lighting up the shadows from inside. She walked up the stairs up to the landing. The door to her mom and dad's room was open, and it looked to be 1,000,000 miles away from the top of the stairs. Why do I feel like a stranger? Like I'm imposing? I promised my mom I would wake her, Kim said softly. Just as she reached the door to her own room, Kim slipped off her shoes and continued to her mom's room. She peered inside and saw her mom's face. She was sleeping peacefully nestled on her side, facing the door. Her dad was facing the opposite direction, toward the window, and on the edge of the bed snoring. Kim tiptoed to her mom's side and looked at the contours and the fine lines on her mother's face. For the first time, she saw her mom as something other than an object of scorn. She was some kind of stranger. Indeed, through the prism of an outsider, she was beautiful and good. Kim's heart wrenched at the realization that her mom was simply just another human being, a plain breathing and thinking human being. But this human being she was analyzing was her mom, the one person in the entire world that she could rely on for love, support, and wisdom. The one person in the entire world who Kim treated like garbage for caring about her. I'm sorry, Mom, Kim whispered. Tears welled up and fell down her cheeks, stopping at the crown of her neckline. The lump in her throat made it difficult to whisper. I'm sorry for everything. I love you, Mom. Kim's mom moved her head and it sank back into the pillow. You're home, her mom said. Yeah, I'm home, Kim whispered. Kim slipped onto the bed next to her mom. Just like when you were a baby, Kim's mom whispered as she threw her arm around Kim's body. Kim woke up to a chirping bird just outside her parents' bedroom window. The outside world was bright and sunny. What time is it? Kim looked over at a clock that sat on her dad's dresser drawer. 11 o'clock? Kim said. She jumped out of her parents' bed and ran downstairs into the kitchen. There was a note on the counter written by her mom. She always left notes on the counter, and Kim would usually crumple them up and put them in her pocket, and then later throw them out at school so her mom wouldn't find out. This time she'd read it. Good morning. I hope you had fun with Jacob last night. I love you, and I put some money by the door in the foyer for your lunch. Have a great day and enjoy your Saturday. Love, Mom. Kim sat the note down. Jacob's car. Kim walked fast to the front window and looked outside. Her eyes squinted in the sun. She looked curbside, and Jacob's car was gone. Oh no, someone stole it. Kim recalled leaving the keys in the ignition. She reached into her pocket, looking for her phone. It must have fallen out, she thought. She headed back upstairs. The carpet on the stairs felt like soft pillows as she ascended in the biggest stride her legs could make. She saw her phone immediately upon entering the room, laying on the floor by the side of the bed. She picked it up, and it was turned off. Great, the battery is dead. Kim walked to her room and plugged her phone into the plug socket by her computer that sat on a desk next to her bedroom window. Within seconds, her phone lit up, asking for a security code. She typed in her code and waited anxiously for the software to load. She scrolled through her phone and saw a missed phone call from Jacob. 11:15? That was 10 minutes ago? She called him back immediately, and it went straight to voicemail. Jacob, this is Kim. Call me back. Kim left her phone charging while she changed her clothes. She sat down at her vanity and started brushing her hair. She could see her bed, the window, and the overall decor of her room. She felt a sense of renewal bubbling up from her spirit, a sense that everything in her life is actually really good, a deep, unexplainable feeling, appreciation for her looks, her brain, and her station in life that was given to her. She went downstairs and grabbed the money from the side table in the foyer and opened the front door to a dark evening sky. She saw Jacob's car parked out front by the curb. What? It was just sunny a second ago? She turned around and went upstairs once more. She saw the door to her parents' room was opened. She skipped her room on the way and peered inside the room and saw her mom sleeping peacefully, just like the night before. Kim grabbed her head as anxiety spun through her brain. She passed out on the floor. Kim woke up to a bird chirping outside of her parents' window. She stood up and saw her dad's clock, 11 o'clock. She went downstairs and skipped the note. She saw through the window that Jacob's car was gone. She ran outside through the front door, and the day turned to night. Jacob's car was out front once more. Kim walked upstairs slowly as the feeling of dread rushed over her pale skin like pins, needling of heat. She went straight to her parents' room, and her mom was there, sleeping peacefully. Kim left the room distraught and walked to the railing of the stairs that overlooked the entryway. She felt nervous inside for a second, then nothing. She leaned over the railing to a free fall, colliding with the floor, breaking her neck. She woke up to a bird chirping outside of her parents' window, and she started to cry, not because of the way she lived or the things she did. The sorrow was for the outcome of regret. Like a snow globe, through the window of a fast-moving train car, Kim will relive her nightmare. As long as the train is in commission, Kim will ride. Say a prayer when a train doesn't appear, when those emergency arms go down with those flashing red lights. The soul train just might be looking for a new passenger, and that passenger just might very well be you.